This is a legacy episode of the Lesbian Historic Motif podcast, originally released as part of the Lesbian Talk Show podcast group. Some references may be obsolete. The show looks at lesbian-relevant themes in history and literature, has interviews and discussions about current historical fiction with queer female characters, including fantastic versions of the past, and presents new original historical fiction for your enjoyment. Last week, we had Luci Dreamer on the show to talk about her recent novel, Heart of Gold. This week, she's come back to talk about some historic books with queer women that she's particularly enjoyed. Welcome back, Luci.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
So, why don't you start with your first book?
Well, I have to say, I think what started me kind of on my road to writing was reading Backwards to Oregon by Jay. You know, that was just, I'd never read anything like it. And it was just kind of a bit of a revelation to read about it because, number one, I love, history and blending, fiction and history together and putting lesbians in historical times, because you don't see a lot of that at all. It was a really fun read, and I really enjoyed it.
Uh-huh. So very much like your book, it's about the Wild West and about one character who is living as a man. And I can see why it really connected with you if you wanted to write that sort of story yourself. Exactly.
Yeah. And just, just the heightened tension of will she be discovered? And, it will happen inevitably. And, when she's with a woman. And so that's, just the tension. And
so what else have you got for us?
I love Sarah Waters' writing. I think I read Fingersmith and Tipping the Velvet before I saw the movies, which I was very, very happy to do that.
I always prefer reading books before movies because it's just a different experience.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. I mean, she had them made into movies quite quickly, didn't she? After.
I'm not sure it was quickly, but it was they were certainly lavish and lush.
Yeah. It was just so well done.
More
which is
movies
exciting.
like that,
right? I think my favorite novel of hers though was The Night Watch. I really enjoyed that. Just even the telling of the story backwards, which at first it was a little disorienting, but
so that's the 20th century one, like
yes,
World War II, I think, or
yeah, it starts in 1947. It follows 4 people, a man and 3 women, and just through basically World War II. Well, it starts in post-World War II England, and then goes back to 1941. And I read it a long time ago, I'll be honest. But, it stuck with me. There were some, some themes that really stuck with me. And, I really enjoyed that. And I think that, too, it's like, I would love to write a World War II historical fiction novel as well, which I will end up eventually doing.
Write all the books.
That's right. Oh, there's so much. It's fun. I'm 50, and I really am sad I didn't believe in myself a little bit more 10, 15, even 20 years ago. I'm like, I could have had so many more books, but, I'm writing feverishly.
We write in our own time. I mean, I have been writing science fiction and fantasy since I was in high school. And I could not have written the books that I finally got published until I was the age when I wrote them. So, I don't think it's anything to be regretting.
Okay. Well, yeah.
So, anything else to talk about?
I think that was pretty much it. Just those books, yeah. I haven't been reading a whole lot because I've been writing feverishly.
Oh, yeah. I know how that goes.
Yeah, it's hard to strike a balance, once I decided on this path of self-publishing, pretty much. I know that I have to keep writing.
What I found is that the part of my brain that is fulfilled by reading is the same part of my brain that I need to write with. So when I was writing, started to write my novels, if I had been reading books that really hit the spot, I wouldn't have had the impetus to be writing because I would have been sated.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like reading a book, it launches, yeah, it launches ideas. Yeah, that's very
Uh-huh.
true.
And yet I think we need to read, because that, I mean, even as writers, we need to keep up with the field, with what other people are doing in terms of writing and the ideas and the ways of writing. And
Hmm.
it's just so hard to find the balance between, reading other people's work and having the time to write your own.
What I've found that I've been able to do is audiobooks. And I think
Uh-huh.
that's a bit of the future as well. But where I can't sit down and read, I have a son and, a house to keep up and yada yada. But I find that if I can put in an audiobook and take 3 or 4 days, it works out. That's my reading for right now.
So have you had listened to any great audiobooks recently? I mean, they don't have to be relevant to the topic of the podcast.
I just finished Shattered by Lee
All
Winter.
right. Uh-huh.
I absolutely love that. I'm a big EJ Noyes fan. Just finished Reaping the Benefits.
Mm-hmm.
When that came out, I think I listened to that quickly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I've been going back into some Jerry Hill books as well. Secret Pond, I think, was one of my favorites, and Gillette Park. I love that one too. The last few weeks, I've been feverishly trying to finish In the Black. So now that that's done, I've got a little bit of downtime.
Uh-huh.
So I'll look at what else I can download and read/listen to.
Well, I'll put links to all of those books in the show notes. And thank you so much, Lucy, for sharing some of your favorite books with us.
Well, thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Lesbian Historic Motif podcast. See the show notes for links to people and topics. Most shows will have a transcript linked as well. If you have a book announcement, a topic suggestion, or might like to appear on the show, please drop me an email. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate it and subscribe on your favorite podcast app, and consider supporting our Patreon.